Hello and welcome back. My name is Nathan House and I'm with the Church of Christ in Houston, California. And if you could like or subscribe to these videos, that would be great. I'm going to be doing a short series on how we got the Bible, not in its entirety. I'm really going to be looking at why do we have these books that we have? Why do we have the 66 books that we call the Bible? Why the 39 in the Old? Why the 27 in the New? And part of this is going to be, I'm going to do this partially because this is a question that you might be asked. There's people out there that are going to come up and say, why don't you have the Apocrypha? They're going to bring up lost books of the Bible. And so you need to have at least some idea that, first of all, these books exist. And second of all, why aren't they included in what we call the Bible? I would also reference you to a more thorough source than I'm going to be doing. World Video Bible School has a great source, and you could just type in World Video Bible School and then how we got the Bible. This is a great class by Denny Petrillo, who is a great teacher. Another great teacher that also taught this is Dan Owen, so you could also find his stuff online as well. Having said that, let's go ahead and get into this question. So as we discuss why these books, why do we have these 66 books? One of the key answers to this really is about this. Who wrote the book? And as we go through this, hopefully you'll see why this becomes so important. If we can know who wrote the book, we can understand why it was included or why it was excluded, right? Sometimes we may not know, for example, who wrote the book of Hebrews. But did the early Christians know who wrote the book of Hebrews? So like if there's a discrepancy as to a time frame, right? If there's a book written that claims to be written by Peter that came from 300 AD when Peter died around 68 AD, we can remove that as a possibility. We know Peter didn't write it. So one of the key questions as we consider why these books is who wrote the book? We want to always know, but a key thing to consider or to remember is, did the earlier Christians know who wrote these books? Did the Jews know who wrote the books of the Old Testament? So anyways, let's go ahead and get into this in a little more specific detail. I'm going to go through each of these passages on the screen. So we're going to turn in just a moment to Exodus 24. And I want you to look at this question. When did Israel accept Moses' words as from the Lord? So when did they accept Moses' words, and why did they accept them? Well, first of all, just recall who Moses was. Why would they have accepted Moses' writings? Well, because they knew who he was. They knew that he was a man of God. They knew that when he came to Egypt to rescue them, that he was performing miracles, great miracles, miracles that even the Egyptian magicians could not match, right? We have the plagues of Egypt. We have Moses turning the water to wine. We have the death of their firstborn son. Later on, we have Moses parting the Red Sea. So all of these things surely help to remind those Israelites that Moses was, in fact, a man of God. So why did they accept Moses' writings? Let's kind of deal with that question right now. Because they knew he was a man of God. But the question also that's relevant is, when did they accept Moses' writing? Let's look at Exodus 24, verses 3 through 7. Moses came and told all the people the words of the Lord and all the rules. So first of all, notice what is being stated here. It is being stated that the words that Moses shared with the people were the words of the Lord. And again, that fits with what we know of Moses. We know that he was a man of God, a prophet of God, performing miracles. Miracles were verifying his claims, weren't they? Just like in the New Testament, when you see miracles, miracles were verifying Jesus Christ's claims. The miracles in the New Testament were demonstrating the apostles to be the followers of Jesus Christ. So in the same way, the miracles of Moses verified, they validated Moses' claims. Let's continue. All the people answered with one voice and said, all the words that the Lord has spoken, we will do. So the people of Israel recognized Moses' words as the words of the Lord. Did this take a long time? Was this something that developed over thousands of years, hundreds of years? There are skeptics today and there's theologians today that say the Old Testament wasn't accepted, that the canon, so the word canon comes from a Greek word which means a standard or a rule. So there had to be something to measure, right? Some sort of a standard to measure which books should be included. Why these books? That's the question, right? Why these books? And so these books were included because who wrote them. And it says here again, all the words that the Lord has spoken, we will do. So when were these words accepted? It didn't take hundreds of years, again, as some scholars say. These words were accepted immediately as coming from God. It didn't take a long time. They said, all the words that the Lord has spoken, we will do. And Moses wrote down, watch what this again is stating, all the words of the Lord. He rose early in the morning and built an altar. Let's skip down here to verse 7. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people and they said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. We will be obedient. So we've seen them say this same thing twice. Again, reinforcing they believed Moses' words immediately. This didn't take hundreds of years. They immediately believed these words to be the words of God. And Moses took the blood and threw it on the people, and behold the blood, and said, behold the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you in accordance with these words. So the question, when did Israel accept Moses' words as from the Lord? They were immediately accepted. It didn't take time. They didn't have to go to a council and have a meeting. They accepted the words of Moses immediately. Why? Because they knew who he was. They knew he was a prophet of God. His miracles verified and validated what he was saying. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 31, and we're going to kind of ask this question. We should already know the answer, but let's ask the question, how were Moses' writings viewed? So Deuteronomy 31, and we're going to go here to, verse 24. I'm sorry, we're going to go here to verse 24. So then when Moses had finished writing the words of this law in a book to the very end, Moses commanded the Levites who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord. So pause for a second. What is the ark? Where did the ark go? Well, we know the ark was, when the tabernacle was built, it went behind the curtain in the holiest of places in the tabernacle. Later on, when the temple would be built, it would be put in that same place. It was the place where God met his people. Where the cherubim's wings touched, that was the mercy seat. That's where God sat. So this was a holy place. Only the high priest could go there, only once a year, only on the Day of Atonement. So Moses said, he commanded the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant, he says, take this book that Moses had written and put it by the side of the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be a witness there for you. So what does this show us? That was a holy place. That was a holy thing. And Moses says, take these words and place them there beside that ark. What does that show us? Well, it shows us that the words of Moses were viewed as holy. The writings of Moses were viewed as holy. Well, why were they viewed as holy? Because they were viewed as being from the Lord himself. So again, why do we have the books we have? The key question is well, who wrote the book? So why was Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy accepted? Because they were known to have come from Moses. Other Old Testament books were accepted for the same reason, because they came from men who were known to be men of God. So let's look at Joshua 24. Joshua 24. And verse 26. And Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he took a large stone and set it up there under the terebinth that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. Joshua said to all the people, behold, the stone will be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words that the Lord has spoken to us. Therefore it shall be a witness against you. So what do we know? What are we going to see here? Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and he said, therefore it shall be a witness against you, lest you deal falsely with your God. So Joshua sent the people away, every man to his inheritance. So, but the question kind of becomes, why is it that why does Joshua have this ability to write these words? Why is it that he's able to put them beside Moses' words? Why were they considered worthy of such a thing? Well, we're going to see here that it was because all the people knew who Joshua was. He was the known replacement. We're going to turn and look at this. He was the known replacement of Moses. Well, we're going to hop over. We're going to skip Exodus 33. You can look at that on your own. But let's go to Numbers 27, verse 15. Numbers 27, verse 15. He said, Moses spoke to the Lord, saying, so Moses is speaking to the Lord. He says, let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man. So Moses says to the Lord, Moses knowing his time won't last forever, he says, appoint someone who can lead when I'm gone, right? So that they have someone who can guide them. So verse 18 says, so the Lord said to Moses, take Joshua and lay your hands on him and commission him. You shall, verse 20, you shall invest him with some of your authority, that all the congregation of the people of Israel may obey him. He shall stand before Eleazar, the priest, who shall inquire for him by the judgment of the Urim before the Lord. Verse 22, and Moses did as the Lord commanded. He took Joshua and made him stand before Eleazar. He laid his hands on him and he commissioned him as the Lord directed. So why were Joshua's writings considered worthy to the same status as Moses? Because he was the known assistant. Go read Exodus 33:11. He was the known assistant of Moses. He was the replacement of Moses, commissioned by Moses. So why was Joshua's words accepted? Because they were known to be from a man of God. When were they accepted? Hundreds of years? Nope. They were immediately accepted as the word of God. Let's look at 1 Samuel chapter 3. 1 Samuel 3. And so again, we're going to see another man who was known to be a prophet of God. So his writings, if he is a prophet of God, his writings would be accepted. It wouldn't take time. It wouldn't take hundreds of years. They would be accepted immediately. So 1 Samuel 3:19 says, and Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. Now watch this. And all of Israel knew, from Dan to Beersheba, so from Dan all the way down to the south in Israel, knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again at Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. So all of Israel knew. It says from Dan to Beersheba. So Dan was way up north, Beersheba way down south. It says everybody from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was God's prophet. So why were his words accepted? Why were Samuel's words accepted as something worthy to be followed? Because Samuel was a known prophet of God. And this introduces us to what is called, we're going to call the canonical principle. When the people of God universally recognized that a book was written by a prophet of God, that book was automatically accepted as canonical, as meeting the standard. What was the standard? What was the rule? That these books were written by a known prophet of God. We're going to continue this study. We're going to look some more at some of these same things next time. But get into your word. Go watch those other videos from World Video Bible School if you want a little more in depth. Thank you for your time and have a great day. God bless.